This is my stop. I have to get off, or I might go pop. Excuse me. Excuse me. If I might be direct. If I'm wrong, please correct. You're standing on my neck. You're standing on my neck. La 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 la. Morning, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, whatever time it is now. All a good day. Welcome to another episode of Portrait of My Life. I'm your host, Amethyst, and I'm ready to get the thing going. Now, this week's episode is a bit serious, and I'm hoping that it's not as long as last week. It's very early in the morning here, so I'm trying my best not to be too loud or too over the top. And I'm looking at my notes here and deciding on what I should go with first to get this thing going and done as quickly as possible. This week has been a heavy week. Personally, professionally, socially, this week has been heavy. So, ain't much funny stuff to talk about, but I guess we would see or we would determine that as we go along. Now, I'm assuming that what happened last week with the audio is that because for certain sections I kept stopping and starting it over, I recorded multiple sections. So when it came down to editing, I feel as though the last part wasn't edited. It wasn't included in the edit, and that's why it was softer than the rest of the podcast. So this time around, I'm going to try and keep one continuous recording with no pauses or anything like that, right? The only stop and pause I did was for the intro song, quote unquote, and then this part. So we'll see how that goes. Thank you guys so much for all the feedback that I got last week. The analytics were pretty good for the first time, and a lot of you reached out personally to see how much you enjoyed the podcast, how much it felt like we were on FaceTime or we were having a personal conversation. And I'm really, really, really happy to hear that, because it means that I'm doing my part, right? And so we'll just run with it today. I would like to start off with some American news in pop culture. Now, I saw that it's been floating around a video of Megan Thee Stallion, shouts out to Megan Thee Stallion and the Hotties crew, about Megan Thee Stallion's interview with Gayle King. And now I'm seeing everybody talking about, but Megan Thee Stallion lied. Megan Thee Stallion lied about sleeping with Tory Lanez or whatever. Listen, I don't think that in the mind of anybody with a brain, with sense, or with common human decency either gave a fuck or didn't know that Megan was lying about sleeping with her. It's like no one cared. No one cares still. No one cares. It doesn't matter. The whole point about it was it did not matter if they were sleeping together or not. That man shot that lady. Point blank, period, had stop. Them sleeping together had nothing to do with the price of fucking tea in China. So we didn't care if she was lying or not. Anybody who's ever been in life, in a relationship around people could have deduced that. But no one with the right mindset cared. And we still don't care if she was lying. He shot that lady and he deserves to be in fucking jail. Right? Get over it. Keeping with American news. On social media, I've been watching the fallout of the 2024 presidential election. This fucking man. And it seems to me that African Americans, Black Americans have reached their breaking point. And not just the breaking point in terms of white people, because white people have been white peopling since the dawn of time, right? But, and I have been guilty of this as well, in terms of trying to provide a different narrative, or at least trying to provide a different perspective based on what I know to be the experiences of people I know. I can't say I know it to be true. It's the experiences of people that I know. And for the longest while, ever since I've been on social media, where I have had access with Black Americans, African Americans, is that they've been saying that they feel isolated in the sense that they don't feel supported by the African diaspora, especially where that is concerned in the US. They've said that they feel as though every other Black person comes to the US and instead of standing in solidarity with them, they stand against them for the sake of whiteness. Now, I know that to be true, right? Even before now, I've known that to be true. Don't hang out with the Black Americans, the lazy, the this, the that, and the third, right? And whilst I've argued that that has been in the minority in terms of how Caribbean people go to the States and treat Black Americans, they have been saying the opposite. And I've always been a firm believer in you cannot disregard other people's experiences. Your experience may be different, but that experience of that person is true and it is valid. And they've been saying they have not been getting support. They have not been getting support from West Indians. They have not been getting support from Africans. They have not been getting support from Latinos, the Asian community, the others, you know. And I saw that for this election. Because when you have analytics saying that 60-something% of Latino men voted for Trump and 40-something% of Latino women voted for Trump and this percent of Asian, it's crazy. It's crazy, right? And now I can take solace in the fact that it was like 70-something% of Black men voted for Kamala Harris and 90-something% of Black women. And if African persons migrated to the US or was born in the US and they would have the opportunity to vote, they would fall underneath that Black category. And that is the only solace that I'm taking away from this, is that we have not totally abandoned them, but I feel as though somehow there needs to be a way in which we, in the current modern era, show that support again. Because I've made the argument that West Indians, African descendant West Indians, have always been a part of moving the needle in terms of race talk, race relation, policies and rights for African American descendants, right? Like there's evidence of that. But that's years ago with Kwame Ture and they. Now we're talking about modern times. You know, where is the correlation that is standing with African Americans in these times? Because let me tell you something. Everybody is nigger to these people. Everybody. They're not stopping to ask if he is an immigrant. They're not stopping to ask if you're from the Caribbean. They're not stopping to ask if you're from Nigeria. They're not stopping to ask where the fuck you're from. You're black, you're black. And it's crazy to me. I mean, it's not crazy because I understand what it is. It's also a vestige of slavery. It's also a tool used for division. Now we have more black people coming to the United States. We need to make sure that they do not unite against us. So what are we going to do? We're going to tell them that the black Americans are lazy. And you don't want to be like them because they're very, very lazy. And you would hear those talking points from the older generation of West Indian people because that's what they've been fed. You see what I'm saying? That's what they've been fed. And it's one thing to be fed it and say, well, oh, I was fed that. But you too have to look around and say, okay, this is not the case. This isn't the case. This isn't what's actually happening. But you see that proximity to whiteness, it does a lot of fucked up things to us, but it does not excuse our lack of support for the black American population. Now is a time when they would need it more and more and more, regardless of how they speak, because there are some African Americans who are out of timing. Point blank period, hard stop. You can't get away from that. You have that in every sector. But even in the case of the Haitians, and I looked at that story, I looked at it when it was happening during elections. Black Americans stood up with Haitians. You understand? Regardless of what, it was black Americans, right? They stood with the Haitian people. So I think there needs to be more support shown to black and African. I don't know, boy. I would say this. Seeing their stance now, in terms of everybody, because it's across the board now, I can't disagree with African Americans. I can't disagree with them. I can't be mad at them. I can't fault them for looking out for themselves. Because somebody has to look out for them. You know what I mean? Somebody has to look out for them. So, them saying, fuck it. You guys, you wanted Trump, deal with him. Don't come crying to us after. And I agree with them. White women are like, oh, well, why aren't the population of black people mad with white men? White men are going to do what white men are going to do. White men voted within their interest. They're going to be fine no matter what. But when we have women voting for a convicted rapist, somebody who's telling you and showing you that they're going to put measures in place to remove all rights you have over your own body, and you vote for that person still, what the fuck do you expect? And it's not just that you vote for that person, because if you guys voted and hushed your cunts, it would have been a different story. But you're voting and you're crying. You're voting, and when they remove the rights for you to have autonomy over your body, or for you to be with BBC, right? Then you want to jump on the coattails of black women in the protests, and then you want to add your voices to the conversation. Then you want to be heard. It doesn't work like that. You don't get to ride off of the coattails and the hard work that black women are putting in, because they voted differently. They voted how they were supposed to vote. So them now being in this position and this situation is an affront to them. It is cause to protest. But you voted for that. Hush, you can't. Hush. And give people a chance. That's what you voted for. Right? And I don't want to stay too long on American politics. But I have to bring it back down now to Trinidad and Tobago. If America cough, we catch the cold. Here, anywhere else in the world. Right? But here, we're talking about Trinidad and Tobago. If America fat, you smell it. So everything America do, we feel the effects of it, right? And on the night of election, the US presidential election, somebody do a news report. I can't remember if it's Newsday or Express or whosoever, and the person. And the caption read, Trini's for Trump. Trini's for Trump. And showing you on the video the group of what seemed like Trinidadians who support Donald Trump. They may be living in the USA and they had the right to vote, so they were going to vote for Donald Trump. Or they are frequent travelers, they are business people, and they agree with Trump. And in looking at the video, all you can see in that video are persons of East Indian descent and or Syrian descent. And I wasn't surprised, you know, because it's always fucking them. And I'm going to be very candid here, because this is a situation where I feel as though Trinbagonians have been skirting around it for I don't know how long. Because when I was young, I remember vividly, right? I vividly remember, whilst I myself, or at least at the age I didn't have the language or the wherewithal to perceive it, I myself have not as a child been a victim of racism from the East Indian community, right? It was never overt to me. However, I do remember the discussions surrounding it with the adults, and they would mention it, and they would talk about it very frankly, right? So I come from a family where people talk frankly regardless. So I knew that it was something that we dealt with as a society and as a people. And as I got older, more understanding and stuff like that, the issue was more or less talked around, right? The issue of the East Indian community being racist. And as an adult now, I still get that. I get that feeling that I got as a teenager, where the issue has gotten to a point where now it's like a dirty secret. It's like words are escaping me right now, but you know what I mean. It's one of those known unknown things. You know it's there, but you don't talk about it, kind of thing. And I'm tired of that, right? I'm tired of it. The last general election we had, the UNC, the United National Congress, which is historically an East Indian party, ran a racist campaign. They used racist ads, right? And I don't have to go into the details. You guys knew. Once you were there for the elections, you saw the ads, right? The ads were racially charged. Lots of racial stereotypes in them, right? She lost the election. This is the same, because I jump in now, because I know I started talking about Trini's for Trump, and now we're on UNC. Because Kamala is the next fucking one I come into. Rest in peace, Princess Margaret. Right? They ran a racist campaign, 2020. Heights of COVID, right? Trump was still in power in the US. Kamala Prasad Bisesa co-signed Trump since then. She wanted to write another thing she wanted to write. She write some kind of fucking letter to Trump when he was talking fuck about COVID and all of it. So Kamala, the leader of the United National Congress, is a Trump supporter. East Indians and Syrian people, Trinis for Trump, are Trump supporters. These are people who own businesses. Right? I want you to think, because another thing that Trinbagonians do is that somehow we think, one, that our own politics don't amount to anything, and two, that the US politics or US culture does not affect us. So in following the US politics as a Trinbagonian, you would hear Trinidadians say, well, that is not we politics, what are you following that for? And you have to. Because what happens in the US matters to us. So you must. If it is that you are interested in or concerned about the way in which your life is going, you have to be interested in politics. And for people that's great at storytelling, I find we sit on the surface of things for long. Or we're very lazy. We don't dig deep. We don't like digging deep. It's just very on the surface. I don't think that the average Trinbagonian knows what it means or what it would have meant to cast a vote for Donald Trump and or to support Donald Trump. Right? It's not just voting for a man who was famous, who owned a hotel, who has a lot of money, you know? It's not just that. Notwithstanding being a convicted felon and a sexual abuser, right? Because that personal things. Okay, let me forget that. This is a man who doesn't believe that women should have the right to govern their own bodies. Women should not have the right to abortions. Right? This is a man that is racist. This is a man that doesn't believe in the rights of the LGBTQIA community. Body rights, social rights, medical rights. Like, this is somebody who believes that white men should be on top. Hard point, period. Stop. This is a man that believes that the persons in Palestine should be wiped out from the face of the earth. That there's no such thing as the West Bank or Gaza or any settlements. And if he believes that about the Palestinians, what do you think he would believe about the Sudanese and the Congo people and all the other persons experiencing genocide? Because they're not white, you know. They're not white. These are the people that these treaties for Trump and fucking Kamala supported. These are the people that believe a man should marry a woman and that's it. That gender is binary, male, female, that's it. They believe in keeping their population uneducated because that's how you control a population. When they can't detect your bullshit and when they don't have the critical thinking enough to look into what you're saying and realize that it's bullshit. So imagine voting for Kamala, who supports all of these ideals, all of these ideas, all of these quote-unquote morals, all these Christian values. A fucking Hindu, by the way. Kamala is a Hindu subscribing to fascist Christian fucking ideals. We need to wake up. And we need to wake up to this racist issue that we're having in Trinidad and Tobago that's still going on. That people feel comfortable enough to get on a fucking camera and support Trump as somebody from the West Indies. As somebody who's living in a country that was built on slavery. For people who have businesses in a country that relies on black labor. These people do not believe that we have the right to be humans. What the fuck do you think that spells for our society if these people get into power? You all need to wake up and get serious, man. Wake up and get serious. I done skirting around all the racism here. By the way, I almost fucking forget this. Some girl tweeted something to the effect that in Trinidad and Tobago, people talking about they're gonna boycott, but you can't boycott because the powers that be provide everything, right? You can't boycott the necessities and they own every other thing like fast food and stuff like that. So it don't make sense. As a matter of fact, she said it was delusional that people think that they could boycott to the extent in which change could be made. And I responded to that tweet basically saying that there has not been a revolution in history that has started off with we can't. It has always been we must. We must. And if you fuckers aren't even willing to boycott the services that aren't necessary for the sake of the small man in this country, then we reach where the fuck we going. Because there's one thing not being able to support essential life-saving stuff like medicine. We know to control all those things. But you're not even willing to fucking boycott a restaurant, boy. Or a coffee house. Or a fucking gift wrapping company. You need those services. You can't carry that business somewhere else. It's a business owned by an Afro Trini or an Indo Trini or a Venezuelan migrant. You can't go support them. People, let's just talk up in the country here out of the song I feel, you know. Because she gave me real vex. If you stand for nothing, you will fall for anything. Right? And I will be damned. Meaning that it will be over my dead body before I sit back and not do anything about the UNC being in power and about these fucking racists. I will not sit or stand for it. I'm riding out hard. Because for all intents and purposes, life isn't perfect. Life is very, 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 very difficult right now. But I'm not going back to fucking slavery. I ain't doing it. I ain't doing it. Right? And I am not about to fight for some fucking young privileged Trinbagonians who don't know the ass from the elbow, who grew up in privilege their entire life and doesn't know what it means to fight for the small man. All they have a rude awakening coming, eh? I ain't not playing with all you. You see, next year for elections, get up and get. Because the UNC cannot come into power. The people don't like we. And they've been showing us that over and over and over and over and over again. Members of the East Indian community have been voicing their frustrations with the UNC. because they have come to represent a community of people who do not think like that anymore. It had a little cons in between, and a little one or two cons. You can't get away from them. But as a community, I don't think East Indian people are tired. They're tired. But they need to be tired a little bit more vocally. They need to stand in solidarity with us vocally. Otherwise, the thing will stop. That woman can't win election. I will not sit or stand for it. Right? And I'm done with the politics now. I really jam she. I wanted to fucking jam she, yeah? Because when Trump wins, she write fucking Trump when you write letter for Trump. That why the woman tell you put the fucking highway between your legs because he's a cunt. You don't care about the people of Trinidad and Tobago. African descendant Trinbagonians make up at least 40% of the population. I don't have the statistics in front of me. But it's us and it's the East Indian people. So you're showing us they don't care about the majority of people in this country. You don't care. Your ideals align with a racist. And I've been saying that the UNC is a racist party. Do you know how we could say that? Because they are. The woman showing you frank comment. All you wake up, please. Wake up, wake up, wake up. It's not a drill anymore. We reach where we fucking going. Get it together. East Indian Trinbagonians, get it to fucking together. Because you see all them videos from America with white people and his nigga this and me going through fucking that, I let you know one time. I let you know one time. You come around with any racist thing, either cussing your cunt out or slapping the taste out your fucking mouth. It's serious for me. Anytime I am met with racism, that racism will be met with by my hand. Or by the brunt of my tongue. I ain't going through that with all you. This is not America. Any racism, East Indian, whether it be Chinese, whether it be Spanish, whoever it is, Syrian, whoever. Got all your fucking frills. This is not long time. Right? This is not long time. And I'm moving. Because I go stay on this whole day cussing. We're moving on. Another thing. While we... Somebody tweeted, and I should have had the tweet here in front of me, that... Well, that's still on politics, I guess, but it segues into something differently, right? We had a gentleman run a campaign where he made a lot of claims, right? Easily verifiable, dismissible, researchable claims. Like claims in which, had you just gone to Google, had you picked up a book on economics, had you even spoken to an expert, you would have realized that the things that Donald Trump was saying is shit, right? And the tweet, it was more a video. I think it was a video from TikTok, and the man was talking about how it's not just that people get misinformation and all. It's that people get misinformation and they don't do anything with it. They either accept it or they don't, right? Like nothing further goes into it. Nobody goes to Google it. Nobody goes to see if it's true. Nobody reads a book. And it's so true. And I don't know if it has a correlation to do with how people have not been reading anymore. Like there's a clear indication that after the 90s, after the early 2000s, but at least after the early 2000s here in Trinidad and Tobago, there was not this big push to get people to read. And since then, there has not been this big push for media literacy, for critical thinking, for verifying information, for researching, for looking for more, for digging deeper. There's none of that. And I can't help but think it has to do with the fact that people do not read a fucking game. When I was coming up, I got books as gifts from my father and my teachers. My grandparents had encyclopedias and books in general, right? School pushed reading heavily. Like at that time when I was in like standard 4, standard 3, there was a huge push by the government to get libraries in schools, right? And 2, to finish Nallis, because by the time I was done with primary school, Nallis was rebuilt. Like the new Nallis was rebuilt, the big one on Abercrombie Street. So there was a push for people to get library cards, to go and borrow books, to read, all of those things. So I don't want to just say in my education, in my tertiary education, because that requires you to do critical thinking. But in like primary school and secondary school, there was a huge push to seek information and to read and to dive deeper, at least a little bit. At least a little bit. And now I don't see it at all. And it has led to the way in which people think, the way in which people process information, the way in which people accept information. It's like you hear it, okay, cool and fine. He said that, oh, then it must be true. He's a celebrity. He's rich. Mind you, you guys would listen to Donald Trump because he's rich or whatever and he's a celebrity, but you won't listen to the fucking experts like Dr. Fauci. Fuck the experts. So it's like you're all saying fuck books, fuck reading, fuck critical thinking, fuck reliable news source, fuck the facts, right? But you're also saying fuck the experts. So it's like on all ends. On all ends. And these are people that very likely, because they used to think, well, they're in the minority. But Donald Trump is president. So it cannot mean that they're in the minority. We are sharing this world with deliberately illiterate people, willfully ignorant. How do you deal with that? How do you combat that? Because the Republicans knew what they were doing when they were purposefully under-educating the population, you know. Because that was purposeful, eh? And you can see the evidence of it online. When you listen to old or older Black Americans talk about the way in which their education system was fucked up, the way in which it moved from having things to not having things, it has to be deliberate. It's the same thing that religion does with their congregation and with their following. They don't want you asking too many critical questions, because when you challenge them and when you ask to you see the lies. You see them for what they are. I promise if you take a critical analysis of the Bible, you'll be like, what the fuck is this? Why am I a Christian? Or why am I a Republican? Think about that. Think about anybody that needs you to be uneducated in order for them to control you. That is a form of abuse. Go and read a fucking book. Read. We need to bring it back. Bring back reading. Buy books for the fucking children. They need no more clothes and no more shoes and all them kind of fuckery. Buy books. Read to the children. Teach the children how to read. Teach them how to seek knowledge, how to question, how to ask questions. Children are not stupid. We raise them stupidly. We're the ones doing kids an injustice. You understand? Teach the children how to read. They need it. Teach them how to not teach them because children are naturally curious. Facilitate their curiosity. We're gonna come to something in the next thing, but that's too heavy of a topic to talk now in this podcast because I don't think I've made a joke since. This is a serious podcast, right? We need to bring back reading. We need to bring it back, and it's so annoying because if I wanted to know anything as a child, I either had to go to the library or I had to speak to an expert. Right? Like, I didn't have information at my fingertips. But now we literally have information at our fingertips. Literally. And a little more dotish. Some of them get more stupid. Let me move on. Right? The last serious thing I want to talk about today, which is basically the last topic, is men and society. And I'm hoping to wrap this up in about 8 minutes or so I could wrap this whole podcast up in about an hour, right? Men and society. Coming off of the story that I did last week with that gentleman from Equilateral Ghana, Mr. Ngonga, Big Piggy. Now that I have talking about all the slackness of it all the humor of it all, I want to get a little serious about this whole situation, right? The woman. I still hold my stance. All the women, the guy himself, were married. The sex was consensual. The taping of the videos were consensual, right? I'm not here to talk about whether or not that was right or whether it was wrong, right? It's clear that because a lot of people have been saying, well, how can all of those women do that, or how, they could agree to do something like that as married women and wherever. Women, those women in particular, I don't know. Okay, human beings in general need certain things. They need companionship. They need love, they need attention. Like, we need things in order to be full human beings, right? And just because you're married to someone or you're with someone, it doesn't mean that you're achieving those things or you're getting those things. You're getting the attention that you need. You're getting the emotional support that you need. You're getting the sex that you need. Because I know we like to think that sex isn't everything and blah, 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 blah. But sex is very important for a relationship. Point blank, period, hard stuff. Right? And here we had a contingent of married women who, for all intents and purposes, were convinced into having sex with someone who was not their husband and doing so on camera. Anyone, and I ask the question, a lot of people ask the question, how, like, why would anybody agree to that? Why would anybody do that? Let me tell you guys something. You see loneliness, not being seen, not being heard, not being comforted, not being reassured will drive anyone into the arms of someone else. I'm not excusing what they did, right? As far as I'm concerned, they wanted to bull and they had fun. But let me talk about the emotional aspects of it now. How were these women convinced? Right? Now, I told you guys what I saw in those videos and how many women I saw receive body shaking orgasms from this man, right? And before this story broke, I was doing a bit of research because I asked myself why it is men cheat. Like, why? Like, you can remain single and fuck who you want. You could fuck down the place from Monday to Sunday, right? Why put yourself in a relationship with somebody only to cheat? Why? And I started doing a little research, how is sex for men and women? Is it different? Things like that, because it had to be something. Do women perceive sex differently than men? Do they use it for different? Because it has to be something. It was bothering me. It was boggling to me that people would cheat, and not just men, people in general. They would cheat when they could just remain single and then do whatever. But then I had to do some critical thinking, and I had to think about it. I've lived in a country where, and I don't mean Trinidad and Tobago, but I've lived elsewhere, and it's very, very religious, right? Very, very, very religious, small island place. And the amount of DL men that I encountered, these are married men with kids who were attracted to, whether that's bisexually, whether that's they were only attracted to men and they put themselves with women and they had children and wherever, they were download him. And I questioned myself even then. And I got the answer. The answer was that the country itself is heavily Christian, right? So there are certain expectations of you as a man and a woman in that country. And the expectation is that when you reach a particular age, you're going to meet someone, you're going to get married, you're going to have kids, you're going to start a family. So that at a particular age, when you're not married, you don't have children, and you have not started a family, you're automatically labeled as LGBTQIA, right? You're outcast, you're ostracized from your community, from your family, from your church, right? Because that's the next thing. You grew up in church your entire life. All you know is church. Sunday, Wednesday, Friday. Church. So that's your community, that's your family, right? And I discovered that especially for men, let me dial it back, because I am now talking about Caribbean society. The gentleman, I think, is from that equilateral. Ghana is a country or a municipality or a city somewhere in Africa, in a country in Africa. So that's a whole different ballgame in terms of culture and how women are treated and how men are treated. But at the end of the day, men are still at the top, right? But in order for men to be at the top in our society, in black society, in black dominated countries, you have to be a man of God, you have to be a straight man, and you have to subscribe to all of those values and morals, right? Society is set up for men to win, but society is set up for a particular kind of man to win, right? So imagine it. As a young boy, you're in church your entire life, your family has a particular expectation of you, and if you don't meet those expectations, you are ousted by your family, you're ousted by your community, you're ousted by everyone you've grown to know and love, right? And that must be scary. It must. So I think what is happening is that men are pressured into all of these things and they cannot keep up with it, obviously. Because one, Christianity demands perfection. They have a lot of teachings about, not everybody is perfect, and the potter, and the broken this, that, and the third. But Christianity demands perfection. Your lifestyle has to be a particular way. It has to look a particular way. You must be doing particular things in order to be of value. So I can only imagine being faced with the prospect of losing what you've known your entire life. Because I'm telling you guys, that man wanted to be a fucking porn star. He didn't want to be no minister. He wanted to be a porn star. You understand? But he was pushed into a life that didn't or cannot facilitate that. He was called to be a family man, a man of God, a minister of the country. You understand? And then when these men grew up in these households with all of this trauma, because loving sex be damned, I think there is something, I don't even know why I think, because I watch porn, I enjoy porn, and porn stars have sex with multiple people, but this is a married man, right? This is a married man with 6 kids who was impregnating his brother's wife and his uncle's wife, and like there's definitely some mental issues behind that. That complete lack of respect for boundaries. You know what I mean? I think we have created a society, or men, because another question was asked, why aren't more people sympathetic towards men? We've been going through all of these issues, and people either laugh at us or they don't take us seriously or they say man up or whatever. And I'm here to tell you that it's our fault. As men, collectively, it is our fault. Because men, centuries ago, established a society that benefited them, quote unquote. Men, quote unquote, because it didn't benefit all men, right? And anytime I talk about benefits socially, I'm almost always never talking about the benefits for black men globally, right? So men created a system that benefited, quote unquote, us, quote unquote, at a time where it just worked. It worked. It was easier to manipulate women. It was just easier, right? But now with the advent of technology and education and information, women are saying that it doesn't have to be like this. Like, there's no reason for me to live this oppressively anymore. Men with sense are saying that there's no need for us to, one, oppress women anymore, and two, to continue oppressing ourselves. Men are men's biggest oppressors. We're the ones. We're the people not supporting us. We're the ones not being empathetic towards each other. Because we have created a society where men have to be hard and tough and rugged. And we have to get up and get. There's no crying. There's no time for emotions. There's no feelings. It doesn't matter what you feel, but what you can do. And it doesn't matter how anybody else feel about it. Because you're the man and you deserve. That's the society we created. Right? That is the society that we have created. That is the society that we're living in. But society itself meaning everybody outside of men, straight white men, are saying that we do not want to live like this anymore. Excuse me. And the issue arises because there are too many men who want to live like if it's still fucking 1904 or 1604. Right? They want to continue living like that, and society is saying we don't want to live like that again. So there's a clash. There's a discrepancy. There's confusion, there's animosity, there's violence. And all the violence is coming from on top. And everybody on top are men. So it's us. We need to do better for ourselves and for our brothers, for our fathers, our nephews, our sons, our uncles. We need to do better. We need to take stock. We need to hold each other accountable. We need to dismantle the society that was created. Marriage, listen, beyond a business deal, which it was initially anyway, marriage to me does not make sense. It does not seem to me that the majority of people want marriage. So why the majority of people getting married? These are the questions we need to start asking ourselves now. Marriage does not serve us as a society. Right? All the things that the Christians and whoever else are saying that marriage is supposed to do, it's not doing it. It's not the backbone of our society. Not morally. Not morally. Because they cry and protest about the drag queens, but when you look at the reports, is married white men, cops, pastors, youth leaders, men who dominate the top rankings in crimes, whether that's pedophilia, whether that's rape, whether that's violent crimes. It's men. Straight men, for all intents and purposes. So it's us, right? And we can't throw the rock and hide our hands. Men need to make society better for men. There are women who subscribe to the patriarchy because of that proximity to men. It starts and it stops with us. Right? I know we're giving them white women hell from now until thy kingdom come, or until they get the fucking act together. But those women voted for Trump because of their husbands. We need to reconfigure society. We need to rethink the way in which we do relationships and families and coupling and parenting and stuff like that. Because what we're doing now, and I understand and I recognize that, right? What we're doing now is that in an attempt to fight for women's rights, we are saying fuck men altogether. And I understand why. Because the women are saying, hey, this is what you're doing to us. This is what we need you to do and what we need you not to do. But it's like the men are saying, fuck you. We know better. Like, you can't tell me how you're feeling. I know how you feel better than you. Or I know how you've been being treated better than you. So women have just said, like, fuck it. Like, just fuck men in general. And we can't be mad at them for that. Collectively, we need to do better. We need it. Men are men's biggest oppressors. right? Men need to start making safe spaces for other men. I ain't dealing with the woman and patriarchy. Let women deal with that. Men need to make safe spaces for men. Right? I didn't get the opportunity to talk about everything in the way in which I wanted to talk about it, in the nuance in which I wanted to talk about it, because I still think I haven't addressed that whole how men perceive sex and how women perceive sex thing. That may be one of the contributors for quote-unquote cheating, or the way in which we deal with it. So I will attempt to talk about it again in the next podcast with a little bit more nuance. My brain has been all over the place this week, sorry, because I have been going through it personally, guys, professionally. So I apologize if this podcast wasn't only just long, but it was very ranty and all over the place, right? I'm sorry. I'll try to do better next time. To end it off, let's just talk about some quick fun stuff. All right. That I have had I've seen within the past, or done within the past week, right? Hey, all you watched the new episode of From? Now, I want to talk about From more in depth, right? But this is what I'm going to do. This season has 2 more episodes, so this Sunday and the following Sunday, and it will be done, season 3, right? Because I don't want to spoil too much, but when it's done, there's going to be an episode where I talk about From in depth. So there's going to be some spoilers for that, right? But From has got it going on. We started getting some answers, which is really good, because not the last episode that went, but the 2 episodes before it pissed me off, because I find like they was just spinning top in fucking mud, right? But what I think was happening is that they gave us 2 lull episodes so that they can finish the season on a high note. So, but the previous seasons, pre-seasons 1, season 2, they tend to keep a very steady rhythm of excitement. So it's back there. I can't wait for Sunday's episode, and I'm looking forward to talking about it with you guys when the season ends, right? Abbott Elementary has got it going on. If you haven't been watching Abbott Elementary, if you're a teacher, you're going to really appreciate it. But I really like Abbott Elementary. Now, I haven't seen this week's episode yet. I saw last week's episode with Dad Fight, where Gregory was opposed by that one dad, and they were about to fight. I think Quintetta Benson does an amazing job of bringing real life scenarios into a show about teaching, because who would have thought that one can address that, how sometimes fathers feel insecure and threatened by other men, by male teachers, so that I thought that was very interesting how she addressed that. I mean, it was very comedic, and I don't think a lot of persons took it seriously beyond just that, but it was a great way to highlight how some men feel inadequate, and instead of doing the right thing, they just take that out on another man who is just trying to be there for their child. I thought that was interesting. So check it out, Abbott Elementary. I've been watching this show called Hysteria, right? And it's set in the late 80s, I believe it's 89. And it's about the satanic panic of that era. So if you're familiar with the satanic panic, I really want to talk about that. I really want to talk about satanic panic and cults and stuff, because I'm really into stuff like that. I'm really into like the supernatural and things like that, and religion and blah and its relation to society. So I think on the next podcast I want to talk about the satanic panic, or cults in general, or the esotericism. esotericism in general. Sorry. But yeah, Hysteria, check it out. It's about the satanic panic and how a small village deals with that. It's very, very interesting. There are moments in it where I got upset because, there's teenagers and it doing super teenager stuff, right? So just look out for that. What else? I don't think I listened to anything new. I saw that there was a publication to streaming services of Whitney Houston's concert in South Africa. And I believe it's a concert that she did when they got rid of apartheid there in South Africa. So it was a very, very touching concert. And to hear her speak, Whitney Houston was a celebrity for the people. She used her celebrity status to lend her voices to very, very serious causes. HIV and AIDS being one of them. She was very, very vocal about it. She even went all the way to London to participate in an HIV AIDS rally, protest, something there. All those many years ago. So she was very vocal about apartheid. So that's good. If you're a Whitney Houston fan, I mean, who the fuck isn't a Whitney Houston fan? And if you're not, you probably need to go and get your ass beat by a fucking cookie, by a OBA man, because who do like Whitney Houston? Right? So that concert is on streaming. Her voice is divine, as usual. And so go and check that out. And yeah, I think that would be it for me. I don't want this to drag on any longer. Thank you so much again for tuning in to Portrait of My Life. Thanks again for all the feedback. I am looking forward to it still. Please don't stop. If you feel as though I could be improving on something, please feel free to let me know. And yeah, if you just want to talk about something that I've spoken about in this podcast, you just want to talk about it with me, you can feel free to message me and to reach out to me. And yeah, have yourself a great weekend. And I will come back to play with you next time. Later.